This is the ROS Developers Podcast, episode 121.
The ROS Developers Podcast, the ROS Developers. The ROS Developers Podcast, the ROS Developers.
Bow, bow, bow. Hello, ROS developers, and welcome to the ROS Developers Podcast, the podcast that gives you insights from the experts about how to program your robots with ROS. This is Ricardo from The Construct, and today I would like to dedicate this episode to all the ROS developers in Asia that are struggling to get their industrial robots to working with ROS. Do not desperate, guys. Keep pushing your ROS learning and your applications for robots. There are a lot of people working hard to help you on that. And for instance, the people from the ROS Industrial Asia Pacific Consortium. And so specifically today, we are going to be talking about what this ROS Industrial Consortium is about and the importance of robotics in Singapore. But before we go into that, let me remind you that at The Construct, we have created what we call the Masterclass program, which is a 6 months program that brings you from almost no knowledge to a professional robotics developer. In those 6 months, you will learn all the practical skills that you need in order to work as a robotics developer. So we are teaching you the real skills, the ones that are demanded at the job proposals. It's not just theoretical knowledge about robotics and so on. You are going to learn a little bit, but we are concentrating on making you learn how to do things with robots, right? So in case that you are interested to change your maybe your skills from a theoretical roboticist into a practical one that has some skills to work on the job from day one. This is your masterclass. Check our website. I will put a link on the show notes and start your new career as a robotics developer. Okay? Great. So now let's go to the meat of the episode. What you are waiting for. Let me introduce you Maria Vergo. Maria is the consortium manager of the ROS Industrial Consortium Asia Pacific. She is going to explain us what the ROS Industrial Consortium is about and what it is, its current state, as well as how much robotics impacts in Singapore. Welcome to the podcast, Maria.
Hi, thanks, Ricardo. Thanks for having me here in your robotic podcast.
Yes, second time that we are recording this intro.
Yes.
The audience doesn't know. The audience doesn't know, but we know. I messed it up. So
No. It's all after all the mishaps and what's not. But glad that we're here, right?
Yes. Thank you for your patience. And then I would like to start with the questions so the audience can understand what is this ROS Industrial Consortium. What is?
Well, I think the audience would probably know this even better than I, right? That ROS started off obviously from the research and academia and has been rooted a lot in that space. So sometimes in 2012 or so, one of the industry companies actually came to one of the research institute over in the US. It's our sister consortia, Southwest Research Institute. And at the point in time, they say, hey, can you take a look at these open source ROS? They have so many libraries, good tools and packages. Can we implement that as well for an industrial robot applications? And hence the name. And what happens then was that there are a lot of companies and a lot of industrial companies who also say, hey, we also have a similar interest, and bending them all together, then come up with this model consortium, right, that sort of work together to see how can we utilize ROS for industrial applications. So that actually happens probably in 2012. Now we are already past our 10-year anniversary. In fact, last year was our 10-year anniversary. And we have grown from what it was from one consortia in the US. Now we are 3. There are 3 in the whole regions. So one in the US, one in the Europe is actually under Fraunhofer IPA, and of course one here in Singapore. So we're actually hosting the Asia Pacific cluster of it.
Okay, and why do we need those three distributions? Why there is one specific for Asia Pacific, ROS Industrial Consortium, Asia Pacific?
I think a lot of times there are two things. The first one is, of course, the time zones, right? Because we do not want everybody to wake up on a different time
Right.
zone. It also allows us to actually help and support people in this region. But also importantly is that I guess different region have their different needs and different interests on what sort of things that they wanted to develop and apply. And that really allows us to serve the members and serve the community and really putting ROS into the industry application where it really matters.
Okay. And then how would you describe the goal of ROS Industrial Consortium?
I think for us, the first thing that we have in mind is that we wanted to support the robotic adoptions, right? And that's really the heart of that and the heart of everybody who works in the robotics community.
Mm-hmm.
Robotics itself is such a nascent technology. It's very interesting, but it's tough. It's very hard for a lot of people. And so what our mission and really our goals is really to support people in the entire ecosystem, from the people who actually creating the robots to the people who's actually applying that. And we wanted to connect the two together, making sure that people can adopt that, but also at the rate, at the cost that is actually acceptable. So then the needle can really move.
Okay, but then based on that, you are not putting any emphasis, for example, on industrial robots. So is the goal focus mainly on industrial robots adoption or any type of robot like service robots or yeah?
Right. So I think that's actually very interesting because when it started, yes, it started from the industrial robots, but I think we see the trend move. And I think for ROS Industrial as well, we changed with the market change, right? We have already pivoted a few times. It did start with the industrial robots, but as the community grows and people do start to see that we do need service robot, we also pivoted and I guess we grow, right, to really help and support the community where they actually grow. And I don't say that that's only today, right? We have started with industrial robot, service robot, any kind of things that probably happens in the future is something that we also wanted to be able to support the community. But at the end of the day, what is important for us is the adoption of robotics to really help and support the community.
Okay, great. And then I have also a second point to discuss because ROS Industrial. So you explain about the industrial part, but now what about the ROS part? Because also you mentioned robots in general, and then we know that many robots still don't use ROS. So are you still focusing into ROS robots, or is just an option also possible?
I would say ROS is still a very, very important part of any robot's modern deployment, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people feel, and it's at least here in the community that I observe, that not a lot of people know how to utilize it best. So other than, of course, allowing people to sort of know how to implement it best, like which sort of packages, for example, are the best for their applications. We also support in developing the ROS packages that can help and support the broader community. And I guess the beauty of that is because it's still an open source packages, and we are developing and we are leveraging and we are contributing back to the community. And we understand that power of crowd innovation still. And so a lot of times when we actually develop and help to adopt those things, we do not want to reinvent the wheel, right? Because that's what the spirit of the open source is. So we utilize that and then we implement it and put them together for the adoptions. Yeah.
Okay, great. Then I want to ask you a little personal question here, so maybe you can inspire other people, which is about your background, because I have seen on your LinkedIn profile that you graduated from a chemical school. So how did you enter into the ROS world from chemical school?
Right. It's a very interesting question. I question myself the same thing, right, if I answer today. But I think robotics really attracts me somehow one way or the other. And I guess I was pulled into this whole world quite serendipitously. So I was doing okay, first thing first, I did control when I was in university. So my final year thesis was actually in control. When I joined the company, it was also on a distributed control. So my area of expertise is in the advanced process control and feedback loop, which I now understand is what a lot of the robotics components are actually fundamentally built upon. But where I actually came into robotics was that in my previous job, actually, I was involved in the new business incubations. And so we're actually looking into a very new technology, new deep tech, right? And the focus that I wanted to focus at that point in time as a technology was actually robotics. And I guess that's how then I get entered into this whole world of robotics, and there's so much to learn, and one thing gets to another. And then, when one of my previous colleague was like asking me, hey, do you want to join ROS Industrial Consortium? And this is what we do. Our mission is really to help people to adopt more robotics, and we're utilizing this open source ROS. And I was like, of course, it's an immediate yes.
Okay, cool. Very cool experience. Very cool. I would say uncommon path to get into ROS. Very cool. So I think that your experience can inspire other people that may think, oh yeah, I like very much about robotics, but I am, from my background, I'm so far from it. So you see there is a path. If you want to go to robotics, go for it.
Yeah, and I think you have the construct to help you, from zero to
yes, exactly. Yes, that's very good. Very good. Well said. Okay. So you recently had your ROS Industrial Consortium meeting to discuss your roadmap. So what are the goals that you have set for the ROS Industrial Consortium Asia Pacific for this year?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think for ROS Industrial Consortium Asia Pacific in particular, we are probably the youngest among all of the other three consortia, right? We've been around for 5 years, so a lot of times that we are still trying to let people know that there is the existence of ROS, right? Because some of the industry company, even in here, some of the big giant ones, you'll be surprised. They'll be still questioning why ROS, like why do we do this and stuff like that. But we see a lot of attraction and attention from them. So one of the key important goals that we've got there is to really push for adoptions and to really say that, hey, what can we do to actually help the members that we already have? And they're all from industries. How can we help you to adopt it more? So one of those goals is actually to create more standardizations. A lot of them actually call out for that. How can we make things more standardized? How can we ensure the quality of the things? Because a lot of the companies that work with us are the company who actually want to productize, and some of them wanted to embed ROS components. And you mentioned it just now, right? A lot of the ROS components are still not being industrialized. And in my heart, it's like, we have to do something about this. How can we, among all of the consortium member, can we band together and push through some of those things that we can adopt together? So I think one of those goals is really to be able to push for those standardizations and to allow that to proliferate, I guess. So yeah.
Okay, but then the goal, if I have understood, is to create more components that industrial companies can use. Would it be that a goal for a goal for the year of the ROS Industrial Consortium?
I think to create the standards first.
The standard
for the industries, yeah. And then create the sample, I guess, packages, application, and tools, I guess, that people can adopt, referencing some of the standards.
Okay, and then when you mention standards, in which sense or for what specific application? Because we can consider ROS as the standard for a framework, but then, for example, in one of the previous podcasts, I was interviewing a guy from PAL Robotics who has created a ROS standard for human-robot interaction. So ROS is the standard, but he was creating the the human robot interaction standard within ROS. So in your case, can we see something similar in ROS Industrial?
Yeah, exactly that. Because I think our members consist of people from components maker, robot makers, and they are developing their products, right? And the question is that what will that ROS application, or how does the ROS supposed to be able to look like in order for you to be able to adopt that for your respective products?
I see. And just by curiosity, I don't know, you have started already doing this, but have you had any feedback from those guys?
No, we're actually starting that as the standardization working group. So you talk about the roadmap, right? It was only less than a month ago or
Yes.
so. So we were in a state right now to define what sort of working group, how it should look like, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any place on the internet where the audience can look for this standardization group? So can they attend to meetings or something? Or is something
Right
for
now,
your or internal organization, consortium?
Yeah, okay. So for now, it's for the consortium members only.
Okay.
I mean, anyone from Asia, I guess, if they wanted to join the consortium, we are welcome to do that as well. But any result, I guess, of course, this is depending on the consortium members' agreement. If they wanted to open it up and share the results of it, we are always happy to do it. In fact, that's one of our missions, right?
Yes, once you get the results, that's going to be
Yes.
along this year, of course. And but very important that you mentioned that anybody in Asia can join the consortium. So it's not a closed club, let's say, that just for a few people. No, so anybody can join. And I will put a link to the consortium here in the show notes. So anybody listening to this and can go there and then join your consortium and learn more.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Then, okay, tell us, so you are based in Singapore, right?
Yes, correct.
And what can you tell us about the robotics ecosystem in Singapore? Because we as foreigners, then we see Singapore like, wow, this awesome city country, or I don't know how to call it, to Lion City. Then and then we see that so much advancement in many technologies. And then as roboticists, we would like to know about the status of robotics in Singapore. What can you tell us?
Right. I think for Singapore government in general, right, they have always been very supportive. And the way we are seeing Singapore is always a technology and innovation hub. We are a small country, obviously, right? But our strength is really in the ability to create, I guess, a lot of new innovations coming out of this. They call it the little red dot. And we are really very supportive. I think there are a whole chain of ecosystems, I guess, that has already been developed in Singapore to help and support any companies that actually wants to come and create new robotics solution and innovations here in Singapore. I mean, ROS Industrial Consortium is one of them, actually, to be honest. I mean, it started off a bit later from the rest of the region, right? But there is a need, and the reason why it's actually being brought here and why it's actually being anchored as a capability, because we see that it's a catalyst to a lot of robotics development and applications. So I think that's just one of the example of how supportive the government can be, and the support system that any investor or any roboticist who wants to come to see that.
Yeah. When I was visiting you last year. Then I was in the ROS Industrial workshop.
The annual workshop, yeah.
Yeah, annual workshop. And then there was somebody from the government also that attended, and I don't remember the name, but he was expressing so much. So that's something that I miss for my own country, for example. Here, nobody cares about this, basically. And it's very sad. And then, but in that case, so they were putting so much effort on how to promote these kind of technologies in all the terms, in terms of research, but also in terms of companies, startups, and so on. And then I was shocked to hear a politician talking about that and putting so much passion about that subject.
I think for us, it's a very important capabilities, right? We don't have, like I said, we don't have a lot of people. Our demographics and I think our challenges are pretty unique as well. We have small space. Uh, we have a lot of aging populations and a lot of people that really works here. Um, no longer, I guess, want to work in a very tedious environment, right? The environment that requires you to do a lot of like laborers work, for example. And so a lot of those uh job scopes, I guess, are pretty much in might be obsolete in a few years. And some of those are actually a very critical infrastructure. I mean, takes cleaning, for example. And I think you mentioned about I think Prof. Quek, who is actually the CEO of NRP, who was actually invited to the workshop then. And I think he brought up the companies that was actually incubated. It's a locally grown company. It's a company based on cleaning. And because there's a huge dire need in the cleaning industry that, has always utilized the older generations and old folks, but then subsequent generations may or may not have the same amount of people. So this is actually a very a real challenges that the country really faces.
Okay. Yes, I was interviewing, when I visit there, I interview a few companies in Singapore about robotics, and one of them was, what's the name? Lionsbot,
Yeah,
exactly, which was the one about cleaning.
correct.
I'm checking here my notes because so many people, too many interviews this year. Yes, and that was amazing, which is worldwide recognized, and they are selling. Yeah, it's one of the top in selling robots for cleaning.
Another company recently in surveillance as well. One of our members, right, Kabam Robotics as well. They they're actually in surveillance. So we also do not have a lot of patrollers for
Yes.
security. So it seems like they just recently also won another award, and in Vegas actually.
Wow.
So that's actually shown, I guess, how the community can really be supported, and we actually need more of such companies here in Singapore.
Yes, and what you mentioned about supportive, there's for example the case of Lionsbot, the CEO Dylan. Then he wasn't into robotics at all when he started this, but he saw the opportunity, and then he went berserk into that. So he went like crazy into that, and also got the support here of the whole ecosystem, and then created a startup with is quite young company startup, and so on. So I wanted to, with those questions, what I wanted to put into the point is, how much supportive is your government into producing the proper conditions for the creation of robotics startups and also robotics research, right? Because also in you have collaborations with Nanyang University, Polytechnical University, yes?
Yeah, we have collaboration with all sort of IHLs as well. I mean, we ourselves is also a research institute, right, and a technology provider and enabler. But the whole idea for us is really to be able to catalyze the adoption of the technology. And many times we actually then create something that can then be shared to what we call the technology receptacles. So the whole idea is that the government wanted to be able to fund some of those programs, for example, and then to then allow other of these technology companies who comes here to be able to adopt that, so then they can respectively go to their industry and their marketplaces and sort of grow that. So that we're looking into this whole multiplier effect, as we call it.
Wow.
And I think the government has been very, very supportive in doing a lot of those things. I mean, not just from the fundings, right, but also from being able to network some of those people. I mean, we bring people together, we let them discuss, some of the important topics, how we can actually put forth new technologies together and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome. Well, the results are there. We can see the results, so this is working. Very good. Very good. And what can you tell us about the plans of Singapore for 2030?
Oh, maybe let's skip that question. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure. Then let me go to the next one. Okay. So there is a question which is, which examples can you provide of successful projects in robotics in Singapore that are state-of-the-art? We have mentioned already some of them.
Yeah.
Would you like to mention any other so I can ask you this question or not?
Yeah, actually, maybe one. Sure.
Okay.
We can talk about the RMF, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, for example, and the collaboration with the hospital, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put some space so I can identify. Okay, so we have been talking about some examples of a state-of-the-art startups and robotics project in Singapore. Any other that you would like to mention?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the community probably knows about this particular reference application based on ROS called Robotic Middleware Framework, which was actually created out of the needs from the healthcare sector here in Singapore. And it was actually conducted, of course, with collaboration with open source robotics back then, and a few other companies here in Singapore to actually help and solve that particular need in the hospitals. I believe the problem statement back then was that there's so many different kind of robots that actually competing, I guess, to utilize the resources, right? Their leaves, their doors, and then there's so many people there. How can we optimize the utilization of the robots back then? And that's, I guess, the statement, I guess, the reason why the interoperability standards then, was coined, and then when the RMF actually came about. And that is actually very, very successful, if I would say so myself. What really started from the healthcare sector has really proliferated a lot further into other different industries as well. We have seen it being utilized in the facilities, for example, and that's why the cleaning robots nowadays are super connected to the building itself, which is, helping a lot of the autonomous operations for the buildings, right? Really saving a lot of people's time. And we are seeing the similar trend and requests coming from other industry that you didn't think would actually adopt that at this stage in time. For example, the manufacturing or even the built environments. I was also in the discussion just quite recently with hotels, which is, I thought that was still very, very far in the future. But no, people are actually utilizing that. And there is a real need that people say that, hey, I wanted something to be able to tie all of these different robotic systems together.
Yes, that's awesome. And that's a big step into the creation of fleets of robots. So this Open RMF system, which is the one developing Open Robotics Singapore, specifically, well, they are also developing some part in the other branches of Open Robotics, or they were. Now, we don't know because of the situation with Intrinsic and so on. Still not clear what is happening there. But anyway, so the OpenRMF, the current version, it's been developed mainly in Singapore and then applied to many examples, as you mentioned. One of them is a Changi Hospital, right? And we are applying also this into here. So at the construct, we built a robotics cafeteria, and then we use this OpenRMF to control all the robots of the cafeteria, preparing coffee, serving to tables, cleaning, and so on. And then we use this to teach how to use it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's an awesome product, and especially for the point that you mentioned, which is interoperability. Whatever of different robots from different brands also. So you are no longer attached to a single brand of robots. So you can decide to have for this task, this robot from this brand, and then for another task, another robot from another brand, and they cooperate thanks to the OpenRMF system.
Right. And I think that's really very important because it's really catalyzed new kind of innovations, right? Because allowing that to happen, that really means that the end user who probably needs different kind of robots can now have other companies that, comes and support the different tasks that maybe the other companies that have already been supporting that is not part of their product strategy, right? Why should they even create just one product strategy just for one company? But for another people, this is a source of innovations. And that's how then the technology can really grow and evolve.
Excellent. Then, so what about the people that are thinking to create a startup about robotics? So would you recommend them to go to Singapore? Can the ROS Industrial Consortium Asia Pacific help in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in Singapore, we are very supportive of the startup community here. There are many different kind of like springboards, for example, fundings and grants available. And yeah, absolutely. Getting connected to us is something that, if it's a robotics company, we are here to actually help and support and incubate you into the ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay. So in case that they're interested, can they contact you, or they should contact some specific
No,
person? Can contact you?
one point of contact will be fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I
Sure.
will put a link to your contact details in LinkedIn,
Yeah.
so they can connect with you and then start the process. You can start the process. Great.
Yeah.
Then, so another question about your profile is that you indicated on your profile that you are working for a human-centric approach to robotics proliferation for industrial applications.
Right. So I think being a human centricity is always something very, very close to my heart, right? Because for me, technology can be very cool, but at the end of the day, it has to serve a need for a particular reason. And a lot of times when we actually develop, as a technologist, of course, myself, right? I keep trying to remind myself that at the end of the day, whoever that we are developing this for has to be developed for a people that we wanted to do that. And I guess that's the reason why when I say that when I work and I wanted to develop this particular technology, that human centricity approach has to be the anchor of that.
Yes, and I completely agree with you. And I was looking here, so because I when I visited you, then afterwards I went to Japan and visited this company which is called Mujin, who is the leader in palletizing robots.
Yeah.
And there they recommend me a book which is awesome, which is The Design of Everyday Things.
Yeah.
I will put a link in the show notes. The Design of Everyday Things. And this book is teaching us how to design things, human-centric things, whatever it is. In this case, it could be a robot, it could be an application, it could be a microphone, whatever, a phone, or so on. So it goes on the direction that you are mentioning there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Wanted to share with you and with the audience in case that is useful. Then let me see. Let me tell you. Oh, for the audience also, they don't know, but the Construct and the ROS Industrial Asia Pacific Consortium, Asia Pacific, we have started a partnership recently where we are providing you the Construct courses for your members. So what is the strategy behind it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. So I think so recently one of the things that we realized is that we do not have enough manpower, right? Rather the right skill sets that actually can help and support us in developing, ROS-based applications. And if we do not have that, even our members calling for the same thing, they say, hey, we do not have enough people that we can actually deploy to support some of our projects. We wanted to do more, but we also do not have any of those people. So obviously, the training itself really have to be reinvented. And I guess that's when we kind of met in ROSCON last year, right, in October. And I was super excited because I saw your what you did before, and I was like, hey, there has to be something that we can actually do together. And platformizing some of this capability, all of your different content and on ROS really helps us to really enrich our training curriculums. So we have done training in the past. We have content and curriculums ourselves, but the way I see where you actually have is really having even more capabilities and courses that we can actually help and support some of these members in the curriculum that we are developing. And that's why I was, reaching out to say that, hey, can we do something together?
Excellent. Yeah, so I know that ROS Industrial Consortium has created some excellent tutorials, which actually they are online. for anybody. I will put some links on the show notes so people can check it. But the problem is that somebody has to be maintaining it because everything is evolving. Next version of ROS, then now this was not working, now it's working. So you need to teach this because many people were waiting for this and now it's working. So, and then I understand that this could be a little bit for engineers, could be a little bit, so I already created this documentation, this training, so I don't want to be keeping track of the documentation. So that's the purpose of our company, to provide this already up to date and maintain and so.
Right. And I think it really helps in like alleviating some of those parts of the work, because we still see training as an important part. So it really helps to support, to provide the that learning journey to the people that wanted to adopt that. But also I think for us it helps us to concentrate on the physical aspects of the trainings more, right? So then we can help the people to grow more and to adopt more.
Exactly. So you concentrate on the training itself rather than on the lessons and the material and that everything is working and so on. Yes. Okay, very good. Let me ask you one final question, which is about how important do you think that is the robotization of some jobs, especially those that lack manpower? So I'm asking you this question because some people, they don't like this because they are taking the jobs. Some people think that they like it because there is a shortage of people, and then we can supply this with robots and other positions. So what can you tell us your opinion about this?
No, I understand what is that. And I think that's a question that everybody always asks, right? But that's why I think it goes back to the principle. And that's why I put in that thing, like human centricity, right? At the end of the day, what exactly it is that human really just do not rather want to do, right? And it's always about ethics questions, I think, that you wanted to answer. I think at the end of the day, people want to do things that they like, right? And they wanted to at least have the choice to be able to do that. For me, at least, that aspects of being able to robotize certain things is very important. It's like, for example, I hate, washing my clothes, okay? And if I can have a robot that actually help me to just wash my clothes and pick it up and like fold it, I absolutely want to have that. Like, tell me where to buy, right?
Yes. Iron, for example. For me, a robot for me to iron stuff.
Yeah, and iron or like do some of the housework for me. I mean, like I want that. And I mean, like, some of those things, right? And at least I can do something that I really like, right? So yeah.
Okay. Yes. I agree completely with you. So there are so many jobs there that are not meant to be done by humans. We have been doing those robots those jobs, because we didn't have a chance, and then also some people need to get a life for that. But I think that this is changing and moving the.
I think the safety aspects of it too, Ricardo. I think sometimes, if you have already worked in a process world, in the industry, for example, some of them are really very dangerous for people to just go in and to just even work at. Places, that is explosion prone, for example. I mean, why should human even go there, right?
Yeah.
If they have the choice, I mean, no matter how much you get paid perhaps for that, but you couldn't put a price on life, right?
No.
And I think there's so many implications of that. And I think that's where robotics really could play a part in really helping to alleviate and really making the world, I guess, a better place.
Yes, very good. That is the vision of robotics also, that I believe, about making the world a better place. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So awesome that we are aligned on this direction, because we have been also talking about doing maybe a training together in Singapore, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We welcome you here, Ricardo. Anytime you come back to the Lion City, call us up. And we will do something together.
Great. Well, let's think about this around November, was it? Our final thing. Okay, for the industrial workshop.
Yes, the ROS Industrial Annual Workshop. It has not been announced yet, so you've got this firsthand.
Oh
It's going
yeah.
to be end
Okay.
of the
Okay.
November.
Okay. Great. Some
Spoiler
shocking
alert.
news. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah, well, the spoiler is already done, so not spoiler alert. Some news. Okay. So thank you very much, Maria, for coming to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Ricardo, for having me.
Okay. And for all the audience there, thank you very much for listening up to here. Remember, if you like it, what you have been listening, give us 5 stars and some comments. Tell us how much do you love. And if you don't like it, also tell us. But especially tell us why. Tell us why you don't like it. And anyway, so see you next week with a new lesson from the experts. And until then, keep pushing your ROS learning.